Yeah, I think we are connected now.
Okay. Connected? Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, live stream.
Yeah, so we can start.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to our session where we discuss different topics related to spirituality that range from topics like which are on the softer side about about the antecedents of bhakti culture, and then we also discuss philosophy, and we also discuss about scriptures, their importance from spiritual perspectives, from academic perspectives. So today we have a very interesting topic. We are going to talk about uh, uh, a book called Shrimad Bhagavatam. We'll give a little bit of intro. Our speaker will do that about what Shrimad Bhagavatam is. It's called the condensed essence of all Vedic scriptures, and it has everything. It has, like they say, it's like a one-stop shop for all your questions related to spirituality and also beyond. So a little bit about our host. Our host is Mr. Pratik Desai. We've hosted him so many times, and it is very valuable to have him always talk about these topics. So he's an accomplished businessman, and he lives in the city of Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India. Prior to, uh, in his prior years, he was a brilliant student, and he completed his graduate studies at the prestigious University of Florida in the US. He's called an intellectual spiritualist. I like that name. Who has spent over a decade practicing and teaching people to live life centered on the principles enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita and the Shrimad Bhagavatam, about which he will be talking, through the medium of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Given the depth of his understanding of the subtleties of our existence, Pratik is the go-to person to talk with in unraveling the mysteries of destiny, free will, and things like that. So we've talked about these things before, but today our topic is focused on Srimad Bhagavatam, and I will let Pratik actually, elaborate on the topic itself first, and take it from here. So Pratik, over to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Aritra, and all the viewers for joining. I'm always humbled by the introduction that Aritra is sharing with all of you. So whatever I have achieved or whatever I've tried to share, it's all because of mercy of my Gurujan, and the entire credit goes to them for that. So I'm just a parrot trying to repeat what they are saying. So basically, today's topic is about Srimad Bhagavatam in the academic circles. We have already discussed in length about Srimad Bhagavatam being the ultimate authority amongst all the Vedic scriptures. But today we'll be discussing mainly about how Bhagavatam is perceived in the academic world. So I think you asked about introducing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, I mean, what immediately strikes me about the Srimad Bhagavatam is that it is completely non-different from Krishna. In fact, in the last talk show we had also, I did share some verses from the Puranas, and especially one verse which was from the Padma Puran, that was comparing the entire Bhagavatam first to 12 cantos to the body of Krishna, starting from the feet of Krishna right up to the head of Krishna. So the entire Bhagavatam is actually the direct manifestation of Krishna. As such, it is extremely unique and very important scripture compared to any other scripture. Others are also manifestations of the Lord's potency, but this is a more intimate and direct manifestation of the Lord. So that's how Srimad Bhagavatam becomes very special. And obviously, apart from all these things, the Bhagavatam is actually the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. It very succinctly delineates the essence of Vedic literature, which is basically Bhakti Yoga, and explains why Bhakti Yoga is highest actually. So the Lord can be approached in three different ways, which is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. But then the Bhagavatam very clearly establishes the fact that the Bhagwan aspect of the Lord is actually the highest. The same thing is also presented in the Bhagavad Gita in a condensed form.
Mm.
Bhagavad Gita is just 700 shlokas, but Shrimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 shlokas. That's how it is in 12 cantos, divided into 12 cantos. So each and every canto is very special, and they are compared to the limbs of the law of Krishna, basically. So in this 18,000 verses, somehow it is explained that Bhakti Yoga to the Lord is the supreme. And actually, originally the entire Bhagavatam was spoken just in 4 shlokas. It was spoken directly from by Lord Vishnu to Lord Brahma, and then Brahma spoke to Narad Muni, and Narad Muni spoke to Vedvyas. So Narad Muni spoke to Vyas in 7 shlokas, and then Vyasdev expanded into 18,000 verses in order for us to understand, because in Kali Yuga we are having tough time. We don't even remember what we did 2 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago. What to speak of recollecting memories of some memories down few years, and obviously there's no question of remembrance of the previous lifetime. So in order to give the conditioned souls a chance to properly understand the Vedic scripture, Vyasdev actually he compiled the Shrimad Bhagavatam, which is also considered to be the national commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, because it was compiled at the end of all the scriptures. Beginning, so it started with the Vedas. Vyasdev divided into 4 Vedas, 1 Veda into 4 Veda, and then he also compiled the Itihasas and the Mahabharat, and then Puranas, and then ultimately the Veda. He wrote a commentary on all these scriptures. Okay, so in the form of Vedanta Sutra, giving the conclusion of these scriptures. And then after that, he was not satisfied. He was distracted. He was not satisfied. He was having some kind of dissatisfaction in his heart. So that's the time when Narad Muni appeared to him, his spiritual master, and then he told him that you are dissatisfied because of one reason, and the only reason is you have not properly glorified Bhakti and Krishna or Lord Vishnu, the glories of the Lord. So this is what you are supposed to do, and then you'll see that you'll be completely satisfied. So then he compiled another scripture, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's how it becomes the national commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, because it was at the end of everything. So the whatever you give at the end, that is supposed to be the conclusion or the culmination, right? So in that sense, Srimad Bhagavatam is the conclusion, and we have provided a lot of evidence from the scriptures establishing the same thing in our previous talk show, the last talk show. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so that's thanks for that introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam. For those viewers who don't know about Srimad Bhagavatam, or maybe interested but they don't know what is the right source to refer to. Okay, so the topic today is about, we already discussed Srimad Bhagavatam, the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam from a spiritual perspective. So I'm very curious, what importance does Srimad Bhagavatam have in when in the context of like academic pursuit and academic for an academician? How would Srimad Bhagavatam have, what importance would that have?
Yeah, okay. So actually, I want to admit honestly that I'm not from an academic background, especially in terms of religious studies. My background and major is in engineering. So I am not involved in religious studies, but whatever I will be sharing, the credit and the source is Dr. Ravi Gupta, who is, he's basically holding the chair, the Charles Red Chair of Religious Studies, and serves as the director of the Religious Studies program at Utah State University. And he also did his, PhD in Oxford University in Hindu Studies. So extremely qualified person, and he's the one who actually shared the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam in the academic world, because he's the one who actually he's got a very tangible experience of hearing the glories and recognizing the glories of the Bhagavatam in the academic world. So whatever points he has shared with us, I will be repeating those points. And so these are extremely amazing, points that he has shared with us. Yeah. It is basically the self-evident glory of Shrimad Bhagavatam. I mean, after hearing all these glories of Bhagavatam in the academic field, you can easily understand that how Bhagavatam is actually self-evident. The glories of Bhagavatam is self-evident. There is no other, I mean, we don't require also any other uh, praman or script or some kind of proof. Okay, so basically, Srimad Bhagavatam is, if you have noticed, it is written like a PhD dissertation. So I don't know if any one of us has done PhD. Neither I don't think Aritra has done, and I don't think Rajiv Prabhu also. I think what we have done is engineering degrees, masters and bachelors. But dissertation, like I think everyone probably is familiar how it is written, at least to some degree. People have got idea about how a dissertation is written. So amongst all the scriptures, only the Srimad Bhagavat is actually written like a dissertation. None of the other Puranas, they are written like that. Then another point is that Bhagavatam has very difficult Sanskrit. So in learned Sanskrit circles, so it is said that the test of one learning is whether one can read and understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a fact in the learned circles in the academic world, especially those connected to Hindu studies or religious studies in India or abroad. Okay. So Bhagavatam is using very difficult Sanskrit, which means basically, I think we discussed last talk show also. There are two categories of Sanskrit. One is classical and one is Vedic Sanskrit. And the Vedic Sanskrit is actually very difficult to understand. It requires further study. So generally, the classical Sanskrit, if one wants to learn it, it takes around 13 years to understand, to properly learn the entire language. And then further 2 or 3 years of training is required in order to actually understand and learn classical Vedic Sanskrit. So Srimad Bhagavatam is actually using a lot of Vedic Sanskrit. And that's how in the academic field, one can easily test their knowledge by how easily they are able to understand and decode the Srimad Bhagavatam. So then the Bhagavatam has words that are not found in Sanskrit literature, and it has very difficult vocabulary. So this is another glory of Bhagavatam. You will not find certain words in other Vedic literature also. Like Vedic Sanskrit is there in the Vedas, in the Upanishad, but not to the extent that how Srimad Bhagavatam is using. And especially certain words, certain vocabularies, they're very difficult.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And it was triggered because we were talking about Sanskrit, two kinds of Sanskrit, Vedic and classical. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are a lot of conversations. There are a lot of conversations between different individuals. So those conversations are actually, those conversations are actually the original conversation, right? Those conversations have not been like paraphrased by Vyasdev, right? And those conversations are happening like eons ago. So that language is itself that what you're saying is the Vedic Sanskrit, right? Because that is the language which they used to use at that time. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
something
it is possible. Basically, Vyasdev compiled the scriptures. So that means he has compiled the conversations also. And because Vyasdev is actually empowered incarnation of the Lord, so he, as Jiva Goswami states, that Vyasdev knew past, present, future, and that's how he could record each and everything. So, although we say that he compiled, but it is definitely possible that he remembered each and every syllable
conversation,
what they
exactly.
spoke at that time, and he reproduced it in the scriptures. That is definitely possible. Yeah, but that's a good question. Thanks for asking. Okay, so next point about the Bhagavatam is that now see it's very interesting. First of all, tell me one thing. I would like to ask the audience a question here. That normally when you refer to any scripture, so you have the translation ready and you have the purport, and especially Srila Prabhupada gave a lot of purports. Okay, so you may be able to understand the meaning because there is a word-to-word translation, synonym also, synonym basically, and then there is a translation. So you'll be able to easily understand what is the meaning of each and every word. Okay, but now you tell me, if you don't have that facility, then how will you understand what is the meaning of a particular word? So normally what we do, so if we don't know a particular word in English language, right, then we go to Google, we type that word, and then it will list all the dictionaries, and then we'll actually able to understand what is the meaning of this word, right? So in a similar way, the Vedic scriptures, now generally there is a common dictionary for that, and Merriam-William is actually the standard dictionary for this scriptures or Sanskrit language. But now the question is that how does Merriam-William also define certain words which are used in scriptures? What is the basis, what is their base of deriving the meaning of particular words from the scriptures?
There is a root language. They refer to either Latin or they see where the root word comes from. That they
but the question is that who is defining that root? Who is explaining that root? Sanskrit is a very old language, it's not a recent language, it's an eternal language actually. In fact, I was also sharing in our talk show last week that last time that whichever words, each and every syllable which is given in the scripture, it is eternal. So this is the meaning of Shruti. Shruti means that which is heard, and what is heard by Brahma from Vishnu is eternal. And it is mentioned that the syllables, all these syllables which are there in the scriptures, these are eternal. Eternal means every particular day of Brahma, every particular Yug cycle, the same syllables are there actually in scriptures. It is not changing with time, right? So so now obviously we have to delve further into who is going to define the root of the words. And it is very interesting also, because this particular question will be a evidence, will be a backup for those who want to understand, or those who have qualms about choosing a parampara. Why a parampara is actually the most essential element of any spiritual path. Without parampara, there is no way to be connected to spiritual path. Okay, so the answer is simple. It is actually, the roots are defined by the devotees in the parampara, the acharyas in the parampara, because the acharyas are existing since a long time. There is a parampara. So when you talk about a parampara, the parampara is also eternal, because it starts from Krishna, and then it is passed down to Brahma to Narad Muni, Narad Muni to Vedvyas to, we connect through Madhvacharya, right? So we can say that at least after Vyasdev, it was Madhvacharya who actually interpreted, who gave the meaning of these roots. We can say like that. So the most important acharyas down the line in the parampara, they are the ones who actually define the meaning of a particular verse. So now how does Merriam-William derive its definition? So what they do is, they look for repeated use of words, and they also look for the meanings of these. So what meanings the acharyas they are providing for these repeated words, and then whichever is the most common and general, that particular meaning they will actually define in their dictionary. So for example, bhakti, as Prabhupada actually translates as devotional service, right? So they will look for the word bhakti in multiple places in the scriptures, and if, let's say, out of 10 acharyas, if majority of the acharyas are defining bhakti as devotional service, then they will also put it as devotional service. Otherwise, you can put it as devotion also, right? So you see that they, even Merriam-William dictionary also, because this is an eternal thing, this Sanskrit language is eternal language, that's how they have to somehow by other means they have to refer to parampara, they have to refer to some acharyas. They cannot do without that. Okay,
so this is actually, but there are so many sampradayas, there are so many acharyas from different lineages.
Yeah.
Sripad Shankaracharya's lineage is there, which is the most popular actually in India. If you see, that is the most popular ideology people want to follow. So how will they like make distinction? Oh, bhakti cult. Oh, this is impersonalist cult. So will they do like that, or will they just like how do they make that selection? It's very interesting. Like how do they make the selection? Who
Yeah,
to follow?
that's what I'm saying. It all depends on majority. So they may define certain Vaishnav concepts in an impersonal way, and they may also define certain impersonal concept in a Vaishnav way, depending
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
majority. Now
yeah.
you'll see that, see, Shankaracharya is the only one in the Sampradaya, but we have, I mean, there is only one Advait Sampradaya as far as Acharya is concerned. The prominent Acharya in that Sampradaya is Shankaracharya. So we don't hear about any other Acharya, but in Vaishnava Sampradaya, we have got four Vaishnava Acharyas, right? And they have refuted again and again, they have refuted Shankaracharya's philosophy. So now, especially when it comes to Vaishnava scriptures, Bhakti scriptures, then obviously the priority will go to the Vaishnava understanding of interpretation. And when it comes to Advaitavad or impersonalism, then the priority can go to Shankaracharya's interpretation of the philosophy, right? So because obviously now any person owning that dictionary, he may be a devotee, he may not be a devotee, or let's assume he's not a devotee, so he wants to get the understanding or the meaning from a neutral point of view. So that's why what they will do is basically they will find out the majority, how frequently, how much the word is repeated in a similar context, and how the acharyas they are defining the meaning of that word, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is the way they will actually define. And see, now it's very interesting to note some of the words, they are only found in Shrimad Bhagavatam. So it becomes very easier. So when you have only Bhagavatam, when you cannot refer to other scriptures, then Bhagavatam, obviously everyone knows that it's in the category of goodness, and it is a Vaishnava scripture, it's a Bhakti scripture, right? So the definition of certain words will be from Vaishnava point of view, from the Vaishnava conception. So then it becomes easier. But then when you have multiple words appearing in variety of scriptures, then you have to understand the context, and obviously it is also possible that with context, the meanings will also, the meaning of the words will also change. It's not going to be the same. So now for Vaishnavas, when we say Tattvamasi, you are that, we say that you are that means you are that in terms of quality. The sameness is there in terms of quality, not in terms of quantity. But in Advaitavad interpretation, you are that means you are Supreme Brahman. So depending on the context also, I think they will see and they will check.
Does the Advaitvad, the Sripad Shankaracharya's Sampradaya, does that also go back to Lord Krishna?
That I think it goes to Lord Shiva probably, and I think the four Kumaras are also involved in the parampara. I'm not sure about it, but yeah, I think it goes to Lord Shiva, that line.
Yeah. So we did hear references in scriptures where Lord Shiva is talking to his consort, and he's telling her that in this age of Kali, I will be going down as a Brahmana to delude the atheists.
Yeah,
Is it obviously I can't remember the exact reference, but I have heard that.
yeah. It's there in Padma Puran and Shiv Puran also.
Padma Puran and Shiv Puran. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so if you think about it, Rajiv Prabhu, he like Lord Shiva is
Yeah, he
the
is
greatest
incarnation of
devotee
Lord
of
Shiva.
the Lord. So he has his own purpose of how he wants to serve the Lord by at least bringing the atheists to the impersonal side, having them have some faith in the Vedas, but not really become a devotee because they're not yet ready. So in that way, but I think what we see Shankaracharya is like an amsha or an incarnation of Lord Shiva. That's what
Yeah.
scriptures say.
So he is empowered incarnation of Lord Shiva, but at the same time, he also accepted a parampara. So he is Advait in the Advaitvad parampara. And I think that goes up to Lord Shiva. So, but I am not completely sure about it. And I think somewhere down the line, there is the involvement of the four Kumaras also.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah. Some sages are there. I don't recollect, but yeah.
But is it also right to say that the Shrimad Bhagavatam was the teaching of Lord Shiva to Mata Parvati? So ultimately, even what we are studying in Shrimad Bhagavatam is also coming from Lord Shiva. Is that right?
Yeah, so there is I think in one of the Puranas, there is a mention of Lord Shiva is also glorifying the Bhagavatam. He is also narrating the Srimad Bhagavatam to Goddess Parvati. And so in that sense, and actually we'll see that in our four Vaishnava Sampradaya, Lord Shiva is Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Is also one of the originator of the Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya. Okay, so in that sense, we consider and treat Lord Shiva as a great Vaishnava. But the Advaitvad, they treat Lord Shiva on a different scale altogether. So there is a difference in the perspective of the Vaishnavas as well as the Advaitavadis, Mayavadis. So now see, it is possible that one personality can teach different multiple things. In fact, and sometimes it is also required because not everyone is on the same platform, is on the same level. So different people, they require different level of understanding. And that's why even Krishna also, if you see that Krishna also spoke about the Karma Mimamsa, he was also kind of propagating Karma Mimamsa when he was trying to defeat Indra, when he lifted Govardhan hill. So he was actually trying to convince the Vrajvasis that actually Indra cannot do anything. He is ultimately responsible of our own karmas, because our own karmas will create the environment and will get ample amount of rainfall. So Indra is just an agent to somehow deliver rainfall, but he cannot do anything as such independently. So in that way, Krishna was actually trying to promote Karma Mimamsa philosophy, which is a sort of atheistic philosophy in one sense, because everything depends on karma. There is no role of any controller as such. There is no controller as such. These different demigods, they are just supplying according to our karmas. So then who is the controller? There is no controller as such. So there is a identification of a particular demigod. They respect that, but then karma is above everything else, and everything is controlled by karma. So in that sense, Karma Mimamsa philosophy was actually propagated by Krishna, but it was definitely disguised philosophy. Krishna just wanted to convince some of the Brajvasis. Okay, but then see, it is very contrary, because then Krishna talks about worshipping Govardhan hill, and he is the one who is providing, and all that, whatever we are getting, the cows, and they are protected because of Govardhan. And so he's again speaking a very contrary philosophy to Karma Mimamsa. So that's how we understand from the acharyas that Krishna was just using this Mimamsa philosophy in order to bewilder the Brajvasis, so that they can stop Indra Puja and they can start worshipping Govardhan hill. So basically, the Lord will speak different things at different times. He also speaks about Sankhya philosophy. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also speaks about Karma Yoga. He also speaks about Jnana Yoga. But then he makes it very clear that Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraj. That abandon everything that I spoke earlier. Now you just surrender to me. This is the highest yoga. Right? So the Lord can speak different philosophies, and similarly, his empowered agents can also speak different things at different times, depending on the audience. In fact, one of the reasons why Bhagavatam is transcendental and it is the ultimate authority is because this is the most important reason. You can easily understand why Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam speaks about topics which are concerned with after death. What is the role? What is the role of a human form of life? What are we supposed to do after death? Who is God? Who are we? Bhagavatam is a discussion about these topics. None of the Puranas, they talk about these things. So for example, Vayu Puran, then you talk about Skanda Puran. So these are particular demigods who are speaking these topics, but they are limiting and restricting the topics depending on the question that is asked by the audience. So for example, when you take about Garud Puran, so Garud Puran, now see what is why this Puran is being spoken, because the question to, I think it was Garuda or some other sage, that what are we supposed to do? Garud Puran is especially connected to having Shraddha ceremony. If someone wants details about Shraddha ceremony, so Garud Puran is very constantly referred to. So Garud Puran is spoken in a context. It is limited, it is restricted. Audience is not asking about what is the transcendental science of the ultimate reality. What is the ultimate reality, and how do we connect? What are we supposed to do after death? These are not discussed in any of the scriptures, in any of the Puranas. That's how Srimad Bhagavatam comes forth. Because Bhagavatam has complete knowledge. It has complete information about these topics, and moreover, we know that the speaker is also freely talking about these things. Okay, so he's not restricted, he's not limited to certain things. Now you see Sukdev Goswami, when he's narrating the Bhagavatam, he's overflowing with ecstasy, and from one topic he jumps to another topic. There is no connection. One lila, he jumps to another lila, and the acharyas, they say that this is because of his ecstasy. He forgets. So when he's speaking about one particular pastime, suddenly we'll go to another pastime which has no connection, and which is actually which already happened before the previous pastime. So in a historical sequence, you'll see the current pastime that he's speaking, it happened before the previous pastime that he actually shared. So there is no sequence in the Bhagavatam. You'll see 10th canto also, in the Krishna book also, you'll see the pastimes that Sukdev Goswami is narrating. It is not in a sequence. There are certain pastimes that happened before, certain pastimes happened later. But in the Bhagavatam, it is given earlier, and certain pastime that happened earlier, it is given later. So that's how we understand that Sukdev Goswami. And then you see, the content, obviously there are 10 topics of any particular scripture, which also I think we discussed, Sarg, Visarga, then Sthanam, Poshanam. We have the Mukti and the Ashray and, Nirodha. See, all these are the 10 topics of a particular scripture. The Mahapurana, or the ultimate scripture, will speak about these 10 topics in detail. Okay. And if they are giving limited knowledge about these 10 topics, that means that scripture is not complete. It has something beyond it. So you'll see that the Bhagavatam is the only scripture which actually speaks about these 10 topics in depth. And all the 12 cantos actually, they address these 10 topics. Some cantos, they place emphasis on certain topics, and so some cantos place more emphasis on particular topics and less on others. But overall, you see that the entire Bhagavatam 12 cantos, they speak about these 10 topics elaborately compared to any other scripture. So these all glories are revealed by our Vaishnava Acharyas. Jeev Goswami has fantastically revealed these things in the Tattva Sandarbha, how Bhagavatam is the ultimate authority amongst the scriptures, right? So yeah, coming back to the discussion about how Lord Shiva is actually addressing a particular group of people, and he's giving contradiction, in his teachings. So to Vaishnava Sampradaya, the rules of Sampradaya, Lord Shiva is actually only narrating pure katha of the Lord, pure devotional service to the Lord. But then in another context, Lord Shiva may be promoting also the philosophy of Advaitavad, Mayavad, like that. Okay, so can we go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Um, yeah, so the point is that even from a non-secular point of view, one has to accept parampara. There is no other way without which we can actually understand scriptures. Okay, and now another interesting point about the Bhagavatam specifically is that Bhagavatam uses the words, the way Bhagavatam uses the words, it means differently. So you may have a particular word in a particular scripture, and the meaning may convey a certain, the meaning may be in a different way than how the Bhagavatam is actually presenting the meaning. So Bhagavatam's meaning in a particular sloka, in a particular context will be different. So, and then it is also possible that the same word can be used in different slokas and have completely opposite meanings also. It may be possible. So it all depends on the context. So this is another glory of Shrimad Bhagavatam. Now, apart from the rare words that which are used in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedic Sanskrit and some other words, only in the Upanishads we'll see Vedic Sanskrit is used, but other Shastra it is not used by, or neither it is used by any other Acharya also. So only Bhagavatam is using Vedic Sanskrit to a lot of extent. So Bhagavatam uses a lot of archaic Vedic words. For example, you see the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, first chapter, first canto, and first verse, which is Janmad Asyayata, and then it ends with Satyam Param Dhimahi, right? So now this Dhimahi, it's a archaic word, it's a Vedic word, it's not classical Sanskrit word. So instead of Dhimahi, actually it should be Dhyayana. Okay, so I mean generally the word Dhyayana is used, but here the Bhagavatam is using Satyam Param Dhimahi. Then Bhagavatam, in spite of all these things, in spite of using this Vedic Sanskrit and other complications also, it is one of the finest pieces of poetry in the world. So Bhagavatam is not just philosophically dense and linguistically complicated, but Bhagavatam remains one of the most beautiful poem the world has ever seen. This is mentioned by one of the scholar, in religious studies. Then Srimad Bhagavatam uses wide variety of meters depending on the mood, context, and pastimes. So this we have seen, right? Normally the Bhagavad Gita is using the Anustup meter, which is 32 syllable. The very easy, the basic meter, which is Anustup. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayam amima sucha. So Srimad Bhagavatam not only uses Anustup, but it uses wide variety of meters. We have the Vasantilak, we have the then we have the Shardul meter, and then we have the prose meters, the long prose meters in the 5th canto also. Many varieties of meters are used, which you will not find in any other scripture. So generally we'll find 2 meters in other scriptures, but Bhagavatam uses extraordinary meters, sometimes not found outside of it. This is another greatness of Srimad Bhagavatam. There are meters which you will not find in any other scripture also. Then Bhagavatam, the metrical pattern, changes, and the layers of meanings underneath the surface are lost because of that. So see, now another important point is there are hidden meanings in the verses, and that hidden meaning in the verses are only revealed by the acharyas because they are able to see those things. Okay. Now, for example, when Shishupal is criticizing Krishna, so it is mentioned by the acharyas that actually the criticism is reversed by goddess Saraswati. So Saraswati resides on the tongue of Shishupal, and what Krishna is hearing is completely reverse of what Shishupal is criticizing the Lord. Okay, so like for example, if Shishupal says that, oh, you are the lowest of Naradhama, and then Saraswati changes the meaning, and he says that you are like Narottam, you are the best of among all the living entities. So Krishna hears the glorification, and Shishupal thinks that he is criticizing the Lord, but actually the Lord is enjoying because he is only hearing the glories of himself. So that way, and then there are many other slokas, for example, in the Raslila also, where a meaning is, there is a particular meaning of the words, there is a direct meaning, and then there is, if you combine different letters of the words together, then it will reveal a completely different meaning, a completely opposite meaning. Okay, let me see if I am able to find it. You know,
You want to like share your screen if you find it.
first let me find it, because let's see.
You talk about like Shrimad Bhagavatam being one of the finest poetry. So I was just thinking about some of those sequences that stand out, like the Gopi Geet in the 10th canto. It is so beautiful. Like the choice of words, they are so sweet. Queen
Yeah,
Kunti's prayers, Queen Kunti's prayers, right in the first canto. Like there are some examples. Those are some examples that just vividly come to my mind.
yeah. Yeah, yes. Got it. Okay, so a typical example of wonderful, um, you know, usage of meter, and then the meanings which are hidden in the Bhagavatam. Okay, so this is Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto 29th chapter and 19th verse. I will read the original shloka, and okay, let me share it.
Yeah, it will be nice to share it. Yeah, so it will be there for everyone to see even, and you
Yeah,
can
this
read it.
is extremely important also.
10th canto.
Okay, so I hope you are able to see now.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, yeah. So Rajani Esha Gora Rupa Gora Sattvan Nisevita Pratyata Brajam Neha Sthayam Stribi Sumadhyama. Okay, now I will skip the synonym and I will go to the translation. The purport is the most important thing, because everything will be clear from the purport. So the translation is that Krishna is actually, obviously okay, what is the scene? The scene is that Krishna has played his flute, and then the gopis, they arrive, they leave everything in their house, and immediately they arrive in the forest at night. Okay, so now Krishna is speaking to the gopis who have assembled in the forest. So Krishna says that this night is quite frightening, and frightening creatures are lurking about. Return to Vraj, slender wasted girls. This is not a proper place for women. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written the following charming commentary on this verse. The gopis thought, alas, even after shattering our family responsibilities, our sobriety and our shame, and enjoying us day after day, and after now dragging us here by the sound of his flute, he's asking us why we have come. As the gopis cast sidelong glances at one another, the Lord said, if you try to tell me that you have come to get night blooming flowers to use in the worship of God, and that it is these flowers you are looking at with your sidelong glances, I will have to reject your excuse as unacceptable, since neither the time, place, nor person involved are appropriate. Okay. This is the Lord's meaning in the words begin Rajini. He might have said, even though there is abundant moonlight, this time of night is very fearsome, because many snakes, scorpions, and other dangerous creatures too small for you to see are lying beneath the creepers, roots, and twigs. Therefore, this time is unsuitable for gathering flowers. And not only the time, but this place is unsuitable for you to gather flowers, because at night terrible creatures such as tigers are abroad here. Therefore, you should go back to Braj. Okay, one second. Okay, all right. So I'm not going through the entire purport. Let me go to the Okay, the purport which provides the other meaning also of the verse. So the following statement by Krishna is based on alternative meaning of the words derived when the Sanskrit words are separated in a different way. The alternative separation according to Vishwanath Thakur would be Rajni Esha. Okay, so now see, this is the original verse. Rajni Esha. Okay. And okay, so Rajni Esha Agora Rupa. So see what he has done. This particular A he has actually connected with like it's a long A, okay, because there is a there is a overline about
Diacritic, yeah.
So diacritic mark is there, yeah. So it's a long A. So what you can do is you can split up. So Rajniesh Agora Rupa Agora Sattva Nivesita Apratiyata Vrajam Neha Asthayam. So see, when you add a to a word, then it becomes the opposite meaning. So here you will see. So through Vishwanath Thakur's commentary, Krishna now explains the meaning of this division of words. The pervasive moonshine has made this night appear not at all fearsome. First he said that it was fearsome. Now see the twist in the meaning. It is not at all fearsome. Okay, and therefore this forest is populated by harmless creatures such as deer. Aghora Satve. So Aghora. So initially it was Ghora Satva, which was saying that it was frightening, but now it has become Aghora Satva. So Krishna's internal meaning, is hidden meaning, is that yes, it's a good thing that you have assembled. It's a awesome surrounding, with moonlight, and because of this, there are no harmless creatures around. So Aghora Satva, or else by animals such as tiger that are harmless because of Vrindavan's naturally non-violent atmosphere. Consequently, this night should not frighten you. So Agora, you'll see that Gora is used 2 times. So here Agora, Agora. So not frighten you, Agora, another word. Or else Krishna may have meant you should not be afraid of your own husbands and other relatives because the night being populated by fearsome animals. They will not come near this place. So this is another meaning. See, he's saying that don't be afraid because your husbands will not come because of the fearsome animals in this place. Therefore, please do not go back to Vraj. Na prati yata. See again, but stay here in my company. Iha stayam. So iha stayam, he has actually removed this A, he's connected here. Yeah. So you see how very clear. And then another word which is important here. So Lord replies to this with the word Sumadhyama. Now earlier Krishna says that, oh, by the word Sumadhyama, oh slender waisted ones, the Lord implied you are beautiful young girls and I am beautiful young boy. Because you all are very chaste and I am brahmachari, as confirmed by the words Krishna brahmachari in the Shruti Gopal Tapani Upanishad. There should be no fault in our being in the same place. Nonetheless, the mind can never be trusted, neither yours nor my own. So here, what is the meaning derived of Sumadhyama? The Lord replies to this with the word Sumadhyama, meaning only women who are young and beautiful, who have slender waists, namely yourselves, should stay here with me and not others. So actually, indirectly, this Sumadhyama also represents Srimati Radharani. And so Krishna is saying that Radharani, you are only one who is supposed to stay here, and rest all of them, you go, you leave this place. So we can appreciate Krishna's statements are full of considerate as well as neglectful statements. Right? So see, here our disciples of Prabhupada, they are writing that Krishna words are certainly brilliant because according to rules of Sanskrit grammar, they may be understood in either of 2 opposite ways. In first case, as translated above, Krishna continues to tease the gopis by telling them night is dangerous and inauspicious and that they should go home. But Krishna is simultaneously saying exactly the opposite. Namely, that there is absolutely no reason for the gopis to fear coming to the Lord. that the night is quite auspicious and that the girls under no circumstances go back home. Thus Krishna simultaneously teases and enchants the gopis with his words. This is the glory of our scripture, glory of the usage of Sanskrit language. So you can play with words and then you can derive a completely opposite meaning also, like that. Right? So isn't that very interesting?
Extremely interesting.
It is it is interesting,
Yeah.
but also if people like us are trying to read this without this kind of a commentary that explains it from multiple dimension, like multiple perspectives of the acharyas, it's impossible for us to understand this.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, that's why I said that the commentary of the Acharya. In fact, Sanskrit itself is a language uh, which requires a lot of blessings also. It's not something that you can just learn it through your own effort, because it's Sanskrit is basically a language of the demigods
Demigods.
or the language of the gods, right? So definitely, whatever is connected with spirituality, with God, it requires blessings. So in order to decode the meaning, we require the blessings of the Lord, and the acharyas, they are actually full of blessings. It's because they actually understand the purpose of the scriptures, the essence of scriptures, the goal of scriptures. So that's why they are blessed by the Lord to uncover the hidden layers of the meanings of all these words. Yeah, so now see why the meanings are hidden is because English language is such a language that cannot do justice with translation of the words. You cannot properly define in terms of English language what do you want to convey when certain words are there in Sanskrit language. Okay, like for example, there are words like bhav, prem. These words are there which actually require proper understanding of that words. So you may call bhav as some kind of emotion, some kind of sentiment, and then prem you can call it as love. But then it requires proper understanding. So there are a lot of words like that which cannot do justice.
We see that word
rasa. Yeah,
very
mellow.
difficult
They
to
call
translate.
it mellow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a rasa is basically a mixture of sentiments. So there are many words which cannot do justice with English language. That's why what happens is the layer of meanings are lost.
Layers of
and the acharyas, they actually try to make it available for us. Okay, so then the Srimad Bhagavatam, now you'll see this, that Bhagavatam is more like a kavya than like a Purana. Okay, this is the special significance of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then you'll note that Bhagavatam has, because see now these are the two meanings of a particular shloka, and there can be unlimited meanings which can be derived from a particular shloka also, because as I said earlier, that the Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. So because Krishna is unlimited, the Srimad Bhagavatam is unlimited, and because the entire scripture is unlimited, so each and every shloka of the Bhagavatam is unlimited. It can give unlimited meanings also. And the example is given of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the guru of Srila Prabhupada. It is said that he spoke for 3 months just on first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and still he was not able to finish it. I think this was in Radhakund probably. So we can get unlimited meanings, realizations from each and every syllable, what to speak of a particular letter or a word or the entire shloka. Okay, so then now the question is that now, okay, we know that, okay, Vyasdev compiled the Bhagavatam and he has presented the Bhagavatam, but then where did the verses come from? So because we have a written documentary about the Srimad Bhagavatam, so how, what is the origin of these verses? Where are these verses coming from? So it is mentioned that it was during the time of G. Goswami that papers, they just became available. They just started. And, the thing is that it is possible, so it may be copied from one one, you can say this manuscript, from one manuscript to another manuscript, because you don't have a typewriter, you don't have a computer at that time, and obviously it should be handwritten only. So you have, Jeev Goswami must have arranged, or some Vaishnava must have arranged to get it in the form of a manuscript. Okay. And then later on, in order to print it, because you want to distribute it, so obviously you have to copy it. So then there are high chances of actually committing errors, because see, when you are copying, now just imagine if I give you a 100-page book for editing of a proofreading, okay, and you won't have sufficient time to do it, or even if you have sufficient time, but still you may skip certain things, then what to speak of 18,000 sloka manuscript, where you have to copy. Now, even if you change one syllable of the sloka, it can change the entire meaning also of the sloka. It can give a completely opposite meaning. So there were a lot of chances of, of errors, because whoever was copying, he has to look up and down so many times, and it is possibility that he may skip certain words. So and then what to speak of the scribes who are doing this, they may be illiterate also. You can pay someone something and you can get the job done. You just have to see, if people are only just copying, they only have writing skills, they can write easily, they can just copy and write it. But if they are not able to understand what is there, then there are more chances of committing errors. So and then what to speak of people who were copying because of some ulterior motive, like they want money or they want some kind of recognition. Then so this is actually the case with Mahabharata. Now Mahabharata, why it is a corrupted text? Because after copying it from multiple sources, it became corrupt. It means that the meaning, actually the slokas and everything, got changed in a lot of places. That's why you have the Mahabharata in different places, different Mahabharata in different places. Like North Mahabharata is not matching South Mahabharata. It's different in East and West, like that. That's why Madhvacharya says that Mahabharata is actually a corrupt text. Now it is interesting that Madhvacharya himself, actually his main reference is Mahabharata. He quotes a lot from Mahabharata, but he himself says that it is actually corrupt, because Mahabharata is it was, when it was copied, there were a lot of chances of errors. And then there are particular example that how so we know. See, now one practical example of Mahabharata being a correct text is that even if you see the television serials, you will see different stories, how they are actually conveyed. The same pastime you'll see in a different way, right? So one particular example is that of Ved Vyas, how he was actually born. So now see, what is the influence of culture in a particular place? Okay. Now the way Vyasdev was born was, we know that somehow Parasar Muni, he had got attracted to Satyavati, and that's how Vyas was born. But this is not accepted in the way in the South India, because South India people are more refined, they're more culturally refined. So that's why the way it is given, the birth of Vyasdev. Now, because Vyasdev is a very elevated personality, we say that he's actually the avatar of the Lord, empowered incarnation of the Lord. So then how can we actually degrade the character of Vyasdev? So what is given in the South, in the Mahabharata, that is used in the South, is that there was a Gandharva marriage, and because of that, the demigods, actually they came and they started showering. They descended from the heavenly planets, and they started showering a lot of praises and a lot of flowers and garlands and everything. So it seemed to be a very culturally refined marriage, and people won't say that, okay, he was born in such a way. They would not criticize. He won't be criticized like that. So so Gandharva marriage, basically it sounds very weird to them, and that's why they have but they describe it in a way that the demigods, they are all assembling and they are actually censuring the marriage of, the birth of Vyasdev through the union of Parasar and Satyavati. So this is how people in the south, they actually they are describing this particular pastime. So we'll see that there are many other pastimes which are described in different manners in different parts of India in context of Mahabharata. So that's why we don't quote Mahabharata as the ultimate Praman as compared to other Shastras, except the Shrimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because these are found to be completely stable manuscript. They have a completely stable manuscript history. That means that there were hardly any chances to make any errors while copying the Bhagavatam. So even the Bhagavatam, it has been treated right from the earlier days. The Bhagavatam has been treated as very sacred scripture and dealt with extreme care and concern. And then it is also founded out that every syllable, every word of the Bhagavatam is hung on. It is so delicately composed that even if you try to insert or skip a syllable, then the verse, it would not make any sense. Okay, so you can easily identify whether a particular syllable or a word is missing, and that would change the meaning of the entire sloka. So it was quite evident. So this is the glory of Bhagavatam, is a self-evident glory. So that's why whenever there is a conflict in different scriptures, we prefer the Bhagavatam as the ultimate authority. We give preference to that. And then you'll see that the Bhagavatam also has prose writing instead of just meters. So you'll see fifth canto, the description of the cosmos. It is more elaborate slokas. Long slokas are used. You'll not find any particular meter to read it. You just have to read it as a prose. So that is also there in the Bhagavatam. Shrimad Bhagavatam is the most commented Quran or scripture than any other. There are about 90 commentaries on the Shrimad Bhagavatam, but vast majority we don't have available now. We have 30 extant commentaries, followed by Vishnu Puran, that has only 3 commentaries. So there is also another very scholarly personality. He's no longer here, but he's Professor Narasimhachari, and was also a visiting faculty in Oxford Hindu Studies. So he says that there is no book as wonderful as Shrimad Bhagavatam, and it is so difficult to put into any category of Shruti or Smriti because it breaks apart all categories. So it sometimes it acts like a it pretends to be like a kavya, sometimes it pretends to be like a Shruti, sometimes it pretends to be like a Smriti. So Bhagavatam is like a teacher friend and a student. So it can teach you in all these ways. It can teach you like a master, it can teach you like a friend, and it can teach you like a subordinate also. So this is a glory of Bhagavatam. Then Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the most influential work in entire India compared to any other work. Then Bhagavatam, we'll see that, Bhagavatam is the only scripture which is promoting Veera Bhava, the loving devotion in separation to the Lord. And then it is also talking so much about, it is bringing out the glories of the devotees more, and it is also showing the reversals of roles. Okay, so we'll see that in the Bhagavatam, majority of the content is focused on the glorification of the devotees rather than the Lord. And then role reversals means normally, according to the Manusmriti, there are certain principles that one has to follow. Like, for example, the elders, the seniors will guide the juniors. Okay, and the teachers will guide the students. But in the Bhagavatam, you'll see that opposite is happening. You'll see the juniors are guiding the seniors. They are showing the way. Then the students are also instructing the teachers. Like, for example, this is a typical example. When Sukadeva Goswami was speaking, he was narrating the Bhagavatam. Who was the student? Narad Muni himself actually came, and Vedvyas himself was also sitting. Yes, so the teachers were taking the role of students. And similarly, wives, like for example, we'll see that the gopis are the highest devotees of the Lord. they are instructing the husbands. You see the wives of the Brahmanas, the wives are instructing the Brahmana husbands, and they're teaching them what is actually the highest goal. You see in the Bhagavatam that animals are teaching, the demons are teaching human beings and demigods, right? When demigods are supposed to teach to the demons, they are supposed to be chastising them. But here we see that Vitrasur as a demon, he is actually glorifying the Lord, and then he is making Indra feel guilty about his position. And he say, somehow he's also glorifying devotional service to the Lord, which is something that Indra is also lacking. So there is a lot of role reversals in the Bhagavatam. And no, so you will not see this any other place. Yeah, so you'll see that how the devotees are glorified. These are all self-evident glories of the Shrimad Bhagavatam. And obviously we have the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam as we discussed earlier. So now one final point I wanted to address. People, so when they count the verses of Bhagavatam, they come to the conclusion that it is only 14,000 verses, and we say that it is 18,000 verses. So how is it possible? So the answer is that actually you have to count the number of verses based on the syllables. Okay, now as we are discussing, see, the basis of 18,000 verses is based on Anustup meter, which has the 32 syllables. Okay, but the Bhagavatam verses, they are some verses are double, some verses are triple than the Anustup, normal Anustup verse, right? And then the prose sections, they are much longer. So when you count all the syllables and when you divide by 32, you will reach 18,000 verses. This is how actually it has 18,000 verses. So just wanted to clarify this important point, because a lot of people, they have doubt about this. Okay, so yeah, these are some of the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the academic field, and I've just repeated what I've heard from Dr. Ravi Gupta. He's the one who's got a very first-hand experience on the glories of the Bhagavatam while living with scholarly people, scholarly personalities who are involved in religious studies. Okay, I just wanted to also share a few of the points which the Bhagavatam is very unique, and this is also given by Srila Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas. So first of all, just like Krishna is appearing once in a day of Brahma, so Srimad Bhagavatam also appears once in a day of Brahma. Okay, because as I said that Bhagavatam and Krishna are not different to each other. So when you don't have Krishna, when you don't have pastimes of Krishna, then obviously you don't have Bhagavatam, because the entire purpose of Bhagavatam is to glorify Krishna. The 10th canto is actually the face of the Lord. It has got the maximum chapters, 90 chapters. You know, out of the 335 chapters of Bhagavatam, 90 chapters are dedicated to Krishna pastime. So you'll see that majority of percentage of Bhagavatam is actually consisting of the 10 cantos. So you remove the 10 canto, and Bhagavatam does not serve any purpose. So Bhagavatam is not there. It appears once in a day of Brahma, like Krishna appears. And then the second verse of the Bhagavatam, the first chapter, first canto, first chapter, and second verse, Dharma Projita Kaitavo, so very clearly establishes the qualification in order to understand and read the Bhagavatam. And to appreciate the Bhagavatam, which is, you cannot, the Bhagavatam kicks out any kind of cheating propensity, and it establishes only one thing: pure devotional service to the Lord. This is a unique glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, so now see, it is also another interesting point is Sukdev Goswami didn't teach the Srimad Bhagavatam to everyone compared to other Shastra. So he taught other scriptures to everyone, but he specifically chose only few people for Srimad Bhagavatam. This also shows how Bhagavatam is the ultimate. Now, another commentary by Srila Jiva Goswami says that actually, why Romaharsana Sutta he was not able to recognize Balram, because it is mentioned that he was not equipped with the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. the knowledge of Bhagavatam, the essence of Bhagavatam was not revealed to him. And because of that, he thought Balram to be ordinary personality. So he offended him. So this is mentioned by Srila Jeev Goswami. Yeah, and then the Rasik Vaishnavas, they see the Bhagavatam, every syllable of Bhagavatam, Radha and Krishna are there, present there. So these are all transcendental glories of Shrimad Bhagavatam, especially majorly from the academic world, as well as some insights from the acharyas. Yeah. So
whether a person approaches Srimad Bhagavatam from wanting to derive spiritual benefit, or like from wanting to gain like spiritual benefit, or they approach it from an academic point of view, so the Bhagavatam is going to like help. So the Bhagavatam is it will. So the question is, will reading the Bhagavatam from either of these two perspectives help like achieve the same goal? Like even if someone approaches it academically, can they still expect to be touched by the spiritual potency of Srimad Bhagavatam? Or even in that case also, does the same principle apply, that how you approach the Lord? Why? Because Srimad Bhagavatam is the Lord in a literary form. That's how the Lord reciprocates. Is it going to be like that? Or that whoever approaches Bhagavatam, they may have like different objectives or perspectives, but they get the same result?
yeah, so that's a good question. And I think the answer is quite simple, that you approach the Bhagavatam in any way you want. Like, for example, the academic scholars, they are trying to approach Bhagavatam to try to understand what is Bhagavatam in terms of scholastic perspective. And they actually come to the conclusion and realize many aspects of the Bhagavatam, the devotional aspects of Bhagavatam, the glorious aspects of the Srimad Bhagavatam also. Like, for example, they all agree that if you want to test your language, Sanskrit language, then the Bhagavatam is actually the best litmus test for that. So while going through the Bhagavatam, any scholarly personality will recognize that how Bhagavatam is self-evident through his own glories, and that how the Bhagavatam is incorporating so many elements which none of the other scriptures are doing. So that will be self-evident to a person. And then obviously you can realize the conclusion of Bhagavatam by the mercy of a devotee. By the as we were discussing, that the acharyas are the one who are actually revealing the meanings of these shlokas. It is not so easy to understand directly. You require the help of some medium. So the acharyas, they are going to reveal the meaning of the Bhagavatam. And yeah, but above all, I would also say that the Bhagavatam is like a sun, as the Bhagavatam itself compares that, the Bhagavatam claims that Bhagavatam is the sun, and no other scripture does that. This is also something that we discussed in the last class. And no other scripture says that I'm the sun. Bhagavatam claims that it's the sun. Okay. And so when you have the cloud covering the sun, the cloud can remain for a certain period of time. But then the cloud is also dissipated only by one way, which is by the presence of the sun. Okay. The clouds are only dissipated by the light of the sun, by the potency of the sun rays. So similarly, when you have the Bhagavatam approached by cloud-like mentality people, initially they might be bewildered for some time, but or they might be able to influence. It appears that it is having some influence. But then if you are in constant touch with the Bhagavatam, then by the Bhagavatam's own potency, the cloud-like mentality will disappear of the person. And one typical example is from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime, how there was a devotee, Srivas Pandit, and he actually was hearing Bhagavatam from an impersonalist, from Mayavadi. Now, and his name was Devananda Pandit. So Devananda Pandit was expert in Srimad Bhagavatam in a scholarly way, not in a devotional way. And even though he was listening from Devananda Pandit, the Mayavadi interpretations of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but Srivas Pandit was feeling ecstasy in his heart, and he started dancing and jumping in the assembly, and he started demonstrating all the symptoms of ecstasy, because he was completely in love with Krishna. So when you have love, you love someone, then there are a lot of symptoms that appear. external symptoms. So the students in the assembly, they thought that he's creating a disturbance and he's just doing a drama. So they threw him out. Okay. So now we will not go into the depth of the pastime, but the essence that I want to convey is that when a person is very receptive, even if he hears from a Mayavadi, the Bhagavatam, okay, the Bhagavatam is heard from a Mayavadi also. If a person is extremely receptive, that person will still advantage from Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam is by nature completely transcendental. It is pure, completely pure, like Harinam. Okay. And similarly, on the other side, if you have a pure devotee speaking the glories of Bhagavatam, and there is a person in the audience who is an atheist or impersonalist, but because this is a pure devotee who is speaking on Bhagavatam, which is also completely pure, it will have effect on the audience, and there are a lot of chances that there is a transformation gradually. The person may transform. So there are two typical extreme cases how the purity of a receptive person matters, and the purity of the speaker, and then what to speak of both people who are pure in their in their consciousness. So yeah, but it's important to be steady. Whatever we, even if we are connected with Bhagavatam, it is important to at least go through it. And for a person who is not so receptive, it is recommended that they should hear from devotees. Then there will be a connection. Otherwise, in the Bhagavatam, it also says that if you hear Bhagavatam from a non-devotee, or those who interpret the Bhagavatam, especially the Mayavadis or the Dvaitavadis, then it is compared to the lips of a serpent, with the milk which is actually polluted by the lips of a serpent. So essentially, Bhagavatam is not polluted, but for the person who is not receptive, for that person, the effect will be like poison, even though he is trying to drink the milk. Okay. For a person who is pure, who is extremely receptive, the poison will get converted into, ultimately into milk. There will be no effect of the poison. And if a person is a devotee speaking the Bhagavatam, then there is only milk which is flowing. Okay. So that even if a person has poison in his heart, so the Amrit will actually destroy the poison in the heart of that devotee, in that person, and then the transformation can happen. So these are the extreme cases where individuals, they try to connect with the Bhagavatam. In any case, one has to be, if one steadily connects with the Bhagavatam, then it will show its true effect.
Okay, so yeah, thank you so much. I am just wondering if anyone has questions before we end the session. Please feel free to ask. Or I'm also monitoring the chat, the Facebook chat, just in case there are any questions there. I have posted some references to like Srimad Bhagavatam, that's online. It's the entire Bhagavatam that's been uploaded there. Also reference about Dr. Ravi and Gupta, as you were saying in the beginning.
Yeah, and we can also get the Bhagavatam set delivered to a person. If they're staying in India, within India, we can deliver to any place. So if someone wants to access the Bhagavatam, then they can order it and we can deliver it.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to access Srimad Bhagavatam can contact me, and I can arrange for that, like through Pratik, arrange it to be delivered through Pratik, or you can even directly look for Pratik. Yeah, since this video is being broadcasted on my Facebook profile, so yeah, I mean, contacting me is fine. I will connect you to Pratik.
Yeah.
So yeah, any other questions? I guess not. So what do you say? Are we good to then wrap up this wonderful session?
All right. Yes, thank you so much, Aritra, and thank you all the viewers for joining, participating in this live session.
Thank you very much. Thank you for enlightening us.
Yeah, thank you.